Candidate, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, would have won all of the boxes in Gingerland. That is all. I believe there were 5 boxes, if memory serves. He would have won all. In the parish of number 9, the district number 9, I'm sorry, that I am proud to represent, of 18 boxes there, I would have won, I believe, 16 out of the 18 boxes there. And in the number 11, where history was created, and the CCM wrested that seat from the NRP, which had held it for over 3 decades. The Honorable Alexis Jeffers was the winner there, creating history and winning all of the boxes in St. James and one of the boxes in St. Thomas's Parish as well. The mandate was overwhelming, and we have gone to St. Kitts and joined the unity government for a second term. The ministries that have been allocated are the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Aviation. I have continued in that capacity. Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources has gone to the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and the Honorable Eric Evelyn has had the Ministries of the Environment and Cooperatives. And we look forward certainly to working with colleagues at the federal level to advance the interests of all Kittitians and Nivisians as we move forward. Just by way of update, and please bear with me, members of the press, because there are, of course, quite a few matters that I would like to mention. I would like to, of course, welcome you. Thank you for being here. And I see some new faces who have come over from St. Kitts. I want to thank them as well. On COVID-19, that has largely been the topic that has dominated us over the last several months. I'm pleased to report that we still have no cases, no active cases on the island of Nevis. Indeed, our last confirmed case was on the 7th of April. And so we have now gone some 2.5 months without a new case, which means that we are definitely in that small group of countries and islands that can say that they're COVID-free. And so I'm very proud again of the team. I want to commend publicly our team leader in Nevis, Dr. Judy Nisbet. The entire team here, the COVID-19 task force, have done a phenomenal job in keeping the people of Nevis safe. We are now moving to the next phase. And we have, for example, our nationals, many of whom were stuck overseas, who are coming home. Students are coming home, and some protocols have been put in place to deal with that. We, of course, welcome our people home. Recently, we had students who had come from Jamaica. Those were quarantined and now in good shape. All have left quarantine and been tested and are fine. We have had also some students who are due now to arrive from Cuba. And we expect some 23 students to come from Cuba, 6 of whom are Nivisian and will be quarantined on Nevis. And so we have facilities that are prepared, and we welcome our people home, and we will continue. Just so that people understand, the protocol is to ask for permission to come in from NASPA, that is the Nevis ENC Ports Authority, if you're landing in Nevis, or SCASPA, St. Christopher ENC Ports Authority, if you're landing in St. Kitts, and that permission will be dealt with. The conditions will be sent to you, and then you can make your way home. In terms of assistance to our students, I'm very, very proud that the Nevis Island Administration, from its meager resources, was able to offer $1,000 per month for 3 months to our students who are overseas. To date, we have assisted 40 students, and 40 students have received checks. I should remind students and parents that this assistance is not available to students who have returned home. The idea was to assist students who had decided to remain overseas and were enduring some hardship there. So if you have returned home, please understand that this assistance is not available to you. 40 students, therefore, have been assisted, and we're grateful for that indeed. Now, let me go very quickly to some sectoral or ministerial matters. The NCDF, the Nevis Cultural and Development Foundation, has asked me, and I'm proud and privileged to mention that starting tonight, we are launching something called BLAC, B-L-A-C, and that is intended to mean bringing life and culture. And they're going to do a live virtual show starting at 7 p.m. this evening. All of Nevis, St. Kitts, and the region are asked to tune in. We're going to have regional artists and the like, and this is the NCDF's way of continuing to bring culture to us even while we are locked down. The first episode is going to be all about saying thank you. Thank you to God for His mercy that brought us through this pandemic thus far. And of course, we're in the hurricane season, and we continue to ask for God's grace and blessings as we make it through. This gospel edition will feature Brent Hoyt, Abigail Kishel, Kevin Downswell, Positive, and many, many local acts such as Vinell Powell, Alison Dorr, Arthurton, Camilla Lawrence, and many more. So I'm inviting one and all to tune in with me, because I will definitely try to tune in at 7 p.m. this evening and be a part of that. Let me switch quickly to education. There have been a lot of questions asked naturally about our schools, reopening of our schools, and so let me go through some information on education. I start with the TVET, the CDB TVET Enhancement Project. I am to say that that's about to start construction in Nevis. Construction is expected to commence in early July. A new technical wing will be constructed at the Gingerland Secondary School. The old technical wing has already been demolished. A two-story building will be erected, and that will accommodate on the ground floor a building and furniture technology classroom, a cosmetology center. The first floor will house a technical drawing room and classroom, and an electricity and electrical technology classroom. The local construction firm Lefco won the bid to undertake the construction. I am told that there were 4 local and regional bidders, and Lefco was selected. FDL Consult Inc. out of St. Lucia is charged with designing the structures to be built, and they will be on Nevis shortly, subject, of course, to the COVID protocols to start that process. They are also in the process of designing the multi-purpose wing at the Charlestown Secondary School. That will be the second project. The GSS project, that is the project at the Gingerland Secondary School, is intended to last for 12 months. The TVET project comes at a cost of US $8 million. And all of the preparatory work on Nevis, for example, the demolition work, etc., will be funded and financed by the Nevis Island Administration. So I just wanted to say that. And for those members of the press who are interested in the bidding process, the bid was won by Lefco Construction. The other bidders were Chiverton's Construction, local again, SL Construction out of Trinidad, and Lennox Warner Partners out of St. Kitts. And so Lefco, we congratulate them on winning the bid, and we look forward to that project proceeding at GSS very shortly. I want to move quickly to the online education. I think all are aware that students have moved to an online platform, and this is something referred to, I'm told, the Microsoft Teams platform that is being utilized. As part of that, we would have done a survey before school closed to determine which families did not have access to a device and which homes did not have access to the internet. And as a consequence of that survey, some 600 tablets have been made available for loan. I want to emphasize that, for loan to families without a device. And in addition to that, we are providing connectivity by way of the government funding the internet connection to those homes that did not have internet. So far, the Department of Education in Nevis has distributed just over 200 of those tablets to students in 12 of our schools, and we are currently ensuring that nearly 50 households are provided with internet connection. Now, this is important. Parents and children who did not participate or were unaware of the survey that was done, they are not going to be left out. We are going to try, nevertheless, to facilitate those. And we continue to ask parents whose children need devices or who do not have internet at their homes to share this information with their schools and with the Department of Education. The device is on loan. I emphasize that. And you ask, naturally, why are the devices on loan? Why are they not a gift to the families? And the answer is that in alignment with our 2017 to 2021 education sector plan, the devices will be used in the schools when children return to their physical spaces to allow continued integration of ICTs in education. And that is why we are doing it by way of loan, because it continues to belong to the government through the Ministry and Department of Education, and the children will be asked to use those as they come back to school. We have been training our teachers in this new platform. There's been a 2-part training. The first was training on Microsoft Teams Teachers were exposed to rigorous training on this Microsoft platform. And the second was training on how to plan and execute lessons online. And so we have had to teach the teachers, and the teachers now are going to teach our students online. We would like to thank Flow and Digicel for their support during the transition to online learning, and we extend appreciation as well to CIBC First Caribbean, who generously donated $4,000 to assist us with our online process. Let me switch to CXC exams. We have had to assist some students who did not quite finish their SBAs and IAs, and those students have been allowed to return to the physical school structure to interact with teachers face-to-face, subject, of course, to the necessary protocols as to distancing and sanitization, temperature and health screenings, etc. That has been done to assist those students. The Caribbean Examination Council has selected July 13th, 2020 as a start date for CXC exams. The exams will take place as follows: CSEC, July 13th to 4th August 2020, CAPE, July 13th to 31st, 2020, and CCSLC, August 5th to 7th, 2020. Moving quickly to the national assessments, I think all are aware that we did not have the test of standards this year. And that again was due to the impact of COVID, and instead of the test of standards, which is typically the standard that is used to place students into grades in high school, the ministry has instead decided to create a mechanism for the transition of students from primary to high school. And what are they going to do? They're going to use the students' grade 5 mathematics, language arts, social studies and science grades, the use of mathematics, language arts, social science and studies grades from terms 1 and 2 of year 6. So they're using essentially grade 5 and the first 2 terms of grade 6. And that will be used to assess students, that will be averaged, and students placed accordingly. In terms of early childhood education, we are very well aware that many people have been inconvenienced with young children. I am very proud that my government continues to be flexible with parents who have young children to ensure that those children are not left at home while the parents have to work. And the various departments and ministries have been working with parents to allow them to remain at home as much as possible to take care of their children while not suffering any reduction or taken away, if you will, of their pay. And so we have been working on that. We are asking those public servants who do not have children in that category and who may feel a little aggrieved that we are here to look out for each other. And I'm sure if they were in that position, they would want some accommodation as well to be extended to them. Since the preschools and the nurseries are closed, it means that those with young children clearly must take care of those children. And this government, which has always put our people first, will continue to facilitate those parents who must be at home with their children. That is being done on a case-by-case basis for the various ministries. The early childhood sector should understand that we'll continue to work to see how we can get them back open in the shortest possible time, again, given the exigencies of the COVID-19 pandemic. We would like to express a very special thank you to all of the education officers, staff at the Department of Education, the people at the Information Technology Department who have done extremely hard work, the principals, staff, and ancillary staff for their continued commitment, and of course a very special thanks to our parents, our students for their patience as we, of course, were trying to create a new structure never before done where we've moved education online for this period. And we think that we've now created a template that moving forward should make us more resilient when the time arises. Let me move quickly to tourism by way of update. I think many people have been asking about the Pinnis Park and when the Pinnis Park is going to start. The process is well advanced. I myself had hoped, and I think I've said from this rostrum time and time again, that I'm urging those in charge to get going. What I've been advised is that, in fact, so rigorous is our planning process that it's our own government that is holding us up at this point. So everything else is in place. But the planning officials have said that the EIA and the consultation and all of that has to be done. And I believe that for those members of the media interested in good governance, this is an example where even a government project is being held up because the planning process has to run its course. And that is what is happening here. I am told, however, that the EIA report from physical planning that it's in, that it will be considered as quickly as tomorrow, Friday, when they meet, and that thereafter we will know where we are going. And so the intention is to have that project started. I think the public would be aware and would remember that it was last year, August, that the president of Taiwan visited Nevis and we had the symbolic turning of the sod. And so, yes, we have lost 3 or 4 months to COVID, but the reality is that many are anxious, including myself, to get this project going. But such is the process, and this is a government that respects the law and respects the process, and so we have to do that. I just want to signal to our local people, a population who might be seeking work, that the construction company will be hiring carpenters, steel benders, masons, stone wall builders, and other workers in short order, and they should look out for the advertisement in that regard so that they can, of course, benefit from that. I believe all of us know that tourism continues to be our mainstay, and the tourism industry has been locked down, shut down, and has suffered more than any other in terms of our local economy. What we have now done is started that reopening process. I'm proud that the bars and restaurants and the like, that they have now been allowed to reopen. We have relaxed the hours of operation, and they are permitted now to sell alcohol. And that has to be done, of course, under the strict controls. We have now a COVID, I like to call them the COVID police, because we have a task force now that is going around and ensuring that establishments are in order and that they're conducting themselves appropriately. We are asking, of course, all establishments to continue to ensure that they function in the appropriate way. Reopening of borders, reopening of hotels, guest houses, etc. We are anticipating, and some consultations would have already started. In fact, this afternoon at 2 p.m., we have a wide-ranging conference call with stakeholders in the hotel sector to determine what their views are. They are clearly anxious to reopen, and people are anxious to get back to work. Thousands of people are currently out of work because the hotel and tourism sector has been shut down. And so we have a wide-ranging call with stakeholders on St. Kitts and on Nevis, spearheaded by the Honorable Lindsey Grant, our Minister, Federal Minister of Tourism. I hope to be on that call as well. And the idea is really to begin that consultative process with our stakeholders and our hoteliers in particular to get a sense of where they are in terms of their own readiness for reopening and what views they may have. If we can do that, reopen the hotels initially locally, it gives us, when I say locally, within the domestic space, it gives us an opportunity for staycations. Many of you, after a tough political season, might want to take a weekend or two at one of our local resorts and enjoy the amenities there. It allows us to do that, and, of course, allows the hotels to test their readiness. The borders and the opening of the borders is the next big step. And we are looking very carefully. That conversation has started, but we're looking very carefully on what other countries have been doing. Jamaica has been open now for just about a week. We are seeking to learn from them. Antigua and Barbuda has opened, and just yesterday we had the sad news that they have 39 new COVID cases that have been imported. So it tells you that reopening the borders is not without risks. The question is whether or not we can find a balance between the risks associated with reopening and naturally the risk of remaining closed and seeing a collapse of the local economy. So that is the situation. Our own view from the Nevis Island Administration and as the Premier of Nevis is that we must find that balance, but where possible we err on the side of the health and safety of our people. And so that is the Gordian knot, if you will, that we have to seek to untie in terms of how we maintain safety and security of our people, but at the same time respond to those who naturally need to get back to work and respond to the hoteliers in particular who would have invested millions of dollars and who want their plants to reopen so that they can benefit. So this is what we are looking at. In terms of COVID-19 protocols and training, we have had various protocols proposed by the WTO, the OECS, CARPHA, CARICOM, the CDC, and we are aware that the Four Seasons Resort has been working with Johns Hopkins University. And we are looking at all of those protocols and hope to have widespread training shortly. We are hoping that we could have it at the federal level, meaning that the same standards apply across the country, and that we hope to have a travel-approved seal for those establishments that are compliant, so as to give greater comfort to those who are visiting. In the interim, of course, testing will have to be a critical part of what we're seeking to do, and both St. Kitts and Nevis are seeking to get testing capability. St. Kitts is a little ahead of Nevis in that regard. They, of course, have a private lab in St. Kitts that has been doing most of our testing, and I believe the government, the federal government, is ahead in terms of getting the necessary equipment to do testing at the GNF. But we are also seeking in Nevis to ensure that we have testing available on the island of Nevis, and I hope to be in a position to make an announcement on that very shortly. That leads me to segue into health. We have been talking about COVID, and our health responders, our first responders, they have really done a phenomenal job. I want to congratulate them again. The Ministry of Health, in fact, in promoting the hand hygiene, we know washing hands continues to be one of the requirements in the fight against COVID. We were told that from very early. Wash hands with soap and water and wash them often. Well, to promote that, the ministry actually purchased and installed 4 hand wash stations around Charlestown, making them readily available for persons to use while doing business in Charlestown. We take the opportunity to remind persons that, as we say, good health is in your hands. The ministry also undertook the unprecedented gesture of distributing face masks and hand sanitizers to every household in Nevis. We have covered every household in St. Paul's, St. Thomas's, St. James, and St. John's. St. George's was not fully covered, but we will be covering them fully because we were able to secure an additional 3,000 masks. And so we will be covering all of the households on the island of Nevis. Nowhere else in the region is this being done. And I feel particularly proud of that initiative, that every household in Nevis is being provided with hand sanitizer, and every person in Nevis above the age of 12 is being provided with a face mask, which is reusable and which is good quality and which comes with filters that can be changed. And so we are very, very proud of that. We didn't stop there. We have also provided a quantity of face masks and hand sanitizer to each of the churches on the island of Nevis. As they were about to reopen, the government took that initiative to provide them with that, to assist them in ensuring that they and their flock remain safe. And that too has been well received, and I would want to thank our churches for their participation. Let me just continue to thank all of those who continue to contribute. The Concerned Citizens Movement, the party that I'm privileged to lead, launched a program 2 months ago to provide groceries to families that were in need, families that were vulnerable. And I'm very proud that in the first go-around we were able to supply groceries, $150 worth of groceries, to each of those families, and we were able to assist 162 families in the first go-around. The second go-around, we were able, through the contribution of many, to assist well over 300 families in the second go-around. And we are now coming up in the month of July on the third go-around in relation to that. For those of you who are able to do the math for me, I said over 300. If you divide $45,000 by 150, you get the indication of how many people were able to assist. P.S., I don't know if you have your calculator, you can help me, but my math is a little deficient, but I believe that would work out to over 300 persons. I hope that I'm accurate in that regard. And we were able to move. Now, you would recall that the ministers, the cabinet members had announced that they were personally contributing $13,500 each month to this initiative. And our hope and aim is that no family in Nevis should go hungry during this difficult time. And initially, it took off. As I said, we were able to assist 162 families. And the second go-around was even better, that people really contributed. So $13,500 ballooned to $45,000 for month 2 from the contributions of many, and we're able to make those vouchers available. And I want to emphasize that the way that we have done it is to make a voucher available so that people can buy what they want, rather than seeking for us to give people what we think they want. The only conditions are you can't buy any alcohol, you can't buy any cigarettes, and it is necessary for you to use the voucher for food. Those are the only stipulations. But other than that, I'm quite proud. And the third tranche of that, as I say, will come in July. We don't know yet how much money we will have. We start with 13,500. We continue to encourage people who are minded to contribute to that very worthy cause. In relation to that, and giving thanks as well, I have only this week received 1,000 N95 masks. Those are the top quality masks. And I want to thank Mr. Adhar Srivastara. I hope I have the name right. Adhar Srivastara. This was facilitated by a local person, Tamika Lawrence, and I want to thank her as well. She reached out and was able to advise that these 1,000 masks would be coming. They have arrived this week, and that again enhances our ability to respond. Our nurses, our nurses, our nurses. I want to apologize to you that you have not yet received your adjusted salaries. We made a commitment that we would regularize pay scales for our nurses. The media may be aware that there has been some difficulty with the different qualifications now that are required for nursing that have been introduced. Some nurses have been there and are qualified by virtue of their long years of service. Others have come and are qualified by virtue of their formal education. And there were certain disparities. We had disparities as well associated with, of course, the fact that in Nevis we had such a shortage of nurses that we had to bring back some retired nurses. And the question was, how did you compensate them? The cabinet in Nevis has been meeting on this for some time. We had come to a decision. We then stayed our hand to allow the federal cabinet to come to a determination. They then came to a determination and proceeded to implement. And we were not yet able to implement because, of course, the nurses are our responsibility financially. So I would want today to make a commitment to our nurses that we are finalizing matters now and that they should get the benefit of the regularized scales very shortly, and that we are working on that. And when I say very shortly, I have said to the people at Finance that I would want to be able to offer that to them by next month. And so we hope that the nurses who have been on the front lines throughout this ordeal, that they will take some comfort in that. Let me segue very quickly to, I think, a success story that Nevis has had. When the COVID pandemic hit, the cabinet would have met. And in that meeting, the cabinet would have decided, that is the Nevis cabinet, that food security had now to be a requirement for the island of Nevis. That the people of Nevis should no longer be wholly dependent for their food supply on container ships coming in from Miami every week. We have fertile land, but for years we know that agriculture was not attractive to our people. And so we decided that we would embark on a concession package in Nevis that was specifically geared to stimulating greater food production and food security. And what did we do? We offered a package to our farmers where we said that you would get free water for 6 months. You would get free seeds and free seedlings. You will get free fertilizer. You will get free preparation of your land, whether it required backhoe, excavator, or it required plowing. We would do that for free. We expanded that to provide free fencing materials. And on top of that, we have provided some labor for free as well to our farmers to assist them with planting and with reaping, as the case may be. We have not stopped there. For our animal farmers, we have waived most of the prices now at our abattoir to make the slaughtering of animals far easier and cheaper for them. For our fishers, we have embarked on the unprecedented journey of providing free fish pot wire to our fishers. We've given them the first roll free and any rolls thereafter at a 50% discount. Now, what is perhaps most commendable about this effort is that for our farmers, we have not restricted it to commercial farmers. We have offered assistance as well to what we call backyard farmers. And I will say, members of the media and the listening public, that I have been impressed beyond measure at how our people have risen to the occasion. I want to publicly commend our Deputy Premier, local Minister of Agriculture, and now Federal Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and his team, his Permanent Secretary, Huey Sargent, his Director of Agriculture, Randy Elliott. They have done a phenomenal job. And I want to commend our farmers who have risen to the occasion. We are definitely impressed at what we are seeing. And just to give you some numbers, because at the end of the day, you have to measure it with data. We have a comparative analysis here from the second quarter of 2019 and comparing that to the second quarter of 2020. So April to June 2019 compared to April to June 2020. In 2019, we produced 17,950 pounds of tomatoes in that second quarter. This year, due to the COVID stimulus, we have produced 19,000 pounds, an increase of 5.9% in tomato production. Sweet peppers, we have moved from 6,200 pounds last year to 8,400 pounds this year, an increase of 35.48%. Watermelon, and these numbers are impressive. We have gone from 9,500 pounds in the second quarter last year to 26,200 pounds as a direct consequence of our stimulus in production this year, an increase of 175.79%. Squash, we have gone from 4,500 pounds last year to 7,940 pounds this year, an increase of 76.44%. Lettuce, we went from 7,840 heads last year to 8,640 heads this year over the same second quarter period, an increase of 10.2%. Sweet potato, and for those out there who like sweet potato, the second quarter last year we only produced 640 pounds of sweet potato. This year we've produced 4,600 pounds, an increase of 618.75% over last year. The only area that we've seen a reduction in the numbers that I have is in the production of pumpkin. Last year we had 45,900 pounds of pumpkin during that period, and this year so far we only have 21,200 for a decrease of 53.8%. But in every other category, we see a massive increase. Sweet potato in particular, 618% increase. That's a sixfold in terms of what was to now what is. And I believe that we ought to be proud. To give a perspective, the same period in 2019, we had only prepared 8.07 acres of land for planting. 8.07 acres. 2020, 27 acres has been prepared in the second quarter, an increase of 234%. And so I believe that those numbers speak for themselves in terms of the success thus far of the stimulus in agriculture and our insistence as a policy that Nevis must be prepared and must be able to feed itself. And so we're seeing greater food security. 15 farmers have benefited from the labor assistance program. It includes weed management and pesticide application. 3 greenhouse operators were assisted with repairs to the existing structure. And we have distributed seeds to over 1,000 homes. 3,000 packets. Just imagine, over 1,000 homes in Nevis were beneficiaries of free seeds, and also over 150 bags of fertilizer. The department has completed 2 phases of the stimulus and commenced phase 3 on Wednesday 24th June for seedlings and seeds to farmers. Backyard homeowners phase 3 will be seedlings from Monday 29th. So those dates are important. As of Wednesday 24th, that is yesterday, we started again the phase 3 of making seeds and seedlings available to farmers. So it's an ongoing process. And backyard homeowners, they will be able to get their seeds and seedlings starting on Monday next. Sticking with agriculture for a few more minutes, we have also increased our water storage. A 20,000 gallon tank was last week installed in the New River area. For those from Nevis, you would know that New River has the highest concentration of farmers, inclusive of animals, crop, and poultry. We have over 30 farmers there. And also in New River, we are completing the establishment of a food storage facility, inclusive of a walk-in refrigeration unit. The value is just over $200,000 for both projects. We also assisted 50 farmers, crop, backyard, and livestock with our fencing wire program. In May and June 2020, we distributed 104 rolls of wire with an estimated total impact of fencing 15 acres of land. We spent just about $50,000 on that initiative. I want to, of course, commend the entire staff who have been involved in this and to ask them to keep pushing. Food security must be a priority now. And if it's one lesson we've learned from COVID, is that we absolutely have to ensure that we can feed ourselves. Quickly to Public Works. The Craddock Road project, I just want to report that we've completed now the laying of all the pipelines for the Craddock Road project. The length of that was estimated at 1,300 feet. This was completed on February 21st. The Hamilton filtration project, 4 containers have been received. They contain the water pod equipment and chemicals to facilitate the project. However, due to travel restrictions imposed by COVID-19, the progress of the project has been delayed. Other activities related to the project were the installation of power to the site, which has been completed. The well was also pump tested to ascertain the safe yield. Several options are being investigated to get the technocrats here to set up the filtration system. And just to remind the public that Hamilton well was dug. It is a high-producing well, but the chemical content in the water was not fit for human consumption. So rather than discarding that high-producing well, we have decided to treat the water with a filtration system and have invested significantly in that system so that that water will be treated and then become potable with WHO standards to be put into the system. That will assist us tremendously in terms of water supply on the island of Nevis. And that project would have been completed were it not for the travel restrictions from COVID and the fact that the technical team are to come in to do that. In Harris Village, the first phase of that project involved the installation of approximately 4,500 feet of 4-inch HDPE pipes. The project commenced on March 9, and thus far 1,830 feet has been installed. The Jessup's fencing project, all of the fencing has been erected. The main structure for the booster station has been completed. Overall, the project is 95% complete. Remaining to be done is the modification of the gates, painting of the booster station, construction of driveway, and landscaping of the compound. Fothergill's booster fencing project, that is complete. The gates are to be installed. Landscaping is being carried out. Water tank at New River. That water tank, which was previously at Spring Hill, was handed over to Agriculture Department to add more storage in the New River farming area. I have spoken to that earlier when I spoke about agriculture. Hamilton Housing Project. The infrastructure for some lands that we bought up at the top of Hamilton, that has already commenced. And the water supply and underground electricity are already in place. These were done by Ministry of Works. To date, the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation has given out 12 housing offers, and a total of 5 individuals have paid their deposits thus far. We await release of additional funding. That is another community that is being created there in Hamilton. Brown Hill Rehabilitation, that work is nearing completion. We have done the stone wall at Brown Hill intersection. We've completed the asphalt paving at the Island Main Road and Brown Hill Road intersection. We've completed the paving at the intersection of Prospect Primary and Brown Hill Main Road, and the completion of retaining walls, 75% of the filling at Bridgegut. Works are to be completed by the end of July. Craddock Road project, 80% of the drainage works are done, 25% completion of excavation on thoroughfare, 75% completion of boundary walls. Works are also expected to be completed by the end of July. Other works, we are paving 1,200 feet of road at Camps Village, paving of basketball courts at Bath Village, continuation of road repair works island-wide, construction of refrigeration building at Prospect, repair works at the Charlestown Public Market, road construction at Stony Grove Village, and I would want to make public that we are coming to Bath Village for the main thoroughfare there, and we are coming also to the good people of Butlers who have been crying out for some time and once we are at the end of July and Brownhill and Craddock Road are finished, we'll turn our attention to those two projects for the rest of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, there's much more I can say, but the hour is growing late, and I know that members of the media would want to ask some questions, no doubt. The microphones are here. As indicated, just indicate what media house you're from and ask your questions. I will do my very best to try and answer those questions that are answerable. And so, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Premier, would you prefer your favorite journalist to ask first to take the first shot, or can I go ahead?
You're my favorite journalist. I don't understand.
No, I thought Mr. Hanley was.
How would you so quickly give up your title?
Ken Richards, Win FM. Premier, a lot of people have been asking about the Charlestown Accord. They don't know if it still exists. They don't know what its status is. They don't know, with the end of the election here, whether it's been renegotiated.
Yes.
If you can clarify, please, that would be great. There is somebody on Facebook who has been attacking you, although not mentioning your name, but I in fact did an interview with her recently, and she explained that she has a problem with you. It's Team Unity advocate Sandra Quilly Atherton. She says you want to be Prime Minister, but you're not man enough to say you want to be, and you're causing problems within Team Unity because of that problem, according to her. The geothermal project, I want to know what it is, the status of the project. Probably COVID-19 had something to do with maybe it being on the back burner at the moment, but I suspect even before that, it wasn't moving very quickly, if you can explain. And my last question for now is the 3 MPs getting double salaries. That is an ongoing discussion. Some people feel while this is legal, in their words, it is immoral. You shouldn't be getting double salaries. If you can answer, please.
Okay, let me try and take them in turn. The Charleston Accord, as I understood the Charleston Accord, it was designed as the platform, the foundation of bringing the Team Unity together. And we know Team Unity is made up of 3 parties, the People's Action Movement, the People's Labour Party, and the Concerned Citizens Movement. There have been issues that have bedeviled the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis over the years. And one of the fundamental issues was the sharing of resources. And the Charleston Accord sought to address that, sought to ensure that the talents that were available in Nevis were unleashed for public, for development, national development as well. We have made good progress, for example, in the areas of foreign affairs, the fact that Nevisians are now participating in diplomacy, a role that they had been hitherto denied. And I take great pride that as Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have shepherded that particular aspect where Nevisians, since 2015, and for the first time in the history of the country, are ambassadors and working in the diplomatic corps at home and abroad. So that has been one thing that we have seen in terms of tangible difference. Nevisians represented now on all national boards. That is also a tangible difference. And we have seen Nevis and Nevisians getting a better share of the national resources that flow from the Citizenship by Investment program. I, however, have been on record saying, and I continue to say, that the full rigor of the Charleston Accord has not yet been implemented. And that is something that I have already telescoped to the Prime Minister, has to be done and done early in this term, that we have to give full rigor to the terms of the Charleston Accord, particularly as they relate to the sharing of resources from the Citizenship by Investment program. Those resources continue to be lopsided in terms of the share that goes to our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts compared to what comes to the island of Nevis. And so while Nevis is getting more than it has ever received in the history of the country, we know that we are not getting what was agreed in terms of the percentage shares. And that has now to be a matter of urgent discussion and resolution between the NIA and the federal government. And I believe the Prime Minister has already signaled his willingness to sit and to resolve those issues. And so the Charleston Accord continues to be the basis of our engagement, and we will continue to engage on that basis with our counterparts on St. Kitts. The Charleston Accord was intended, as I said, to be the foundation, the basis on which we would engage among the three parties and between both islands. You mentioned the geothermal project. You are correct. We had some momentum. We, in fact, had cleared the lands, and we hoped that we would have, at this stage, been doing what is necessary. But everything crashed with COVID. We've lost the last several months due to that. I'm aware now that the parties are in discussions because there have been some requests to revise some aspects of the agreements, and those requests are being dealt with. And so legal teams have been engaged over the COVID period and continuing to try and get a resolution on those issues. A new company has come into the fray, a company called Albioma, A-L-B-I-O-M-A, and Albioma has joined NREI as the entities that are involved in that project. And so Albioma has had its own requirements that we are seeking to address. And so that is where we are. Once I have hard information, Mr. Richards, I will certainly be willing to bring it forward. 3 MPs, double salaries, ongoing discussion. You say it's immoral. I am not a pastor yet, although I aspire to be. And so morality. Well, people are suggesting it. That's a matter. People will always suggest many things. The question of morality or immorality is really not an issue for me at this point. I deal with legality and illegality, constitutionality and unconstitutionality. And as I continue to say, this argument is one of recent vintage, designed by those who had a political agenda. I would say to anybody who is still raising this particular argument that it was front and center of the electorate. It was put as the primary argument by the Nevis Reformation Party on the island of Nevis in the June 5th, 2020 election. And the results show that it was an argument that was overwhelmingly rejected. Now, only crazy people keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And so I am not proposing to engage in any debate about double salary, because that debate has been had, and the people, the ultimate arbiter, the ultimate deciders of what is moral and what is immoral, what is good and what is bad, have voted in a free and fair election and given the Concerned Citizens Movement its full stamp of approval, all 3 seats. And I believe that that ought to put that matter to bed. And I don't believe in flogging dead horses. Leave that matter to one place. The public has spoken, and spoken eloquently. For those who continue in a vain hope that what did not take hold in the last 2 election cycles will somehow take hold in the future, I tell them, well, it's a matter for them. But I believe the people have spoken. You mentioned attacks on me. That is nothing new. And if I were to respond to every attack, I don't know where I would be. This name you mentioned, some Sandra Queely Atherton, I know not this individual. I know of her, but beyond that I can't speak to her or her motives. And so I really am not interested in engaging with individuals who, whatever their agenda may be, I have no idea. What I will say to you, Mr. Richards, is when Team Unity was fighting, when I was fighting, when I took the fight to then Dr. Douglas, who was at the height of his power in 2010 and following, when I brought the motion of no confidence, and I say I because the name on it was Mark Brantley, when I took the boundaries matter to the court and went all the way to the Privy Council in England, and we all remember the historic victory in England that I think, more than anything, had the result of Team Unity winning in February, I believe it was, of 2015, that I never heard of or saw any mortal, as we would say in colloquial terminology in Nevis, by this name. I was in the trenches. My sleeves were rolled up. I was in the mud. I was fighting in the heart and the heat of the battle. And my concern continues to be that we see some Johnny-come-lateys who have jumped onto the bandwagon now that the wagon looks in good shape and are seeking to attack those who fought the fight when the fight was hardest. And when many were afraid to fight the fight, there were those of us who stood up and stood on the ramparts, armed only with the breastplate of righteousness, as I like to say, and fought what many thought was an impossible fight. And there are many in our country who like to jump on the wagon when the wagon is in calm waters. When the ship has sailed into port they jump on, and they forget when the seas were rough, those of us who were there. And that is as much as I would say to some of these who come now and say they're attacking people. The only other matter I will raise before I move on is this facile and puerile debate about Prime Minister. And I want to make it pellucid today. And if you ask me the question, I hope you'll come back the next time and ask me the question, and we'll say it every time. There is nothing wrong with anybody aspiring to be Prime Minister. Let me make that clear. Mark Brantley has not expressed any such aspiration. There's nobody who privately or publicly could say that they had a conversation with me, because I have always made it plain, and I've asked and been asked the question several times, that my aspiration is to get the best possible deal for Nevis from this relationship, this Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I've said that, and I've not been shy about talking about it. What we see happening is that other people are using whatever they perceive and seeking to graft upon us whatever they perceive. I can't speak to that. That is not for me to speak to. The intentions that I have exposed are continue to be getting the people of Nevis fully integrated into this country and having their full share and the full fruits of their citizenship. That is my aspiration. But I want to be very clear, Mr. Richards, that those who feel that it is wrong for Nivision to aspire to be Prime Minister, tell them I say, not until I'll go so, that the people of Nevis are no less than anybody else. We're no less educated, we're no less capable. And if we are to achieve that state of every citizen, every boy and girl in this country, whether you're from Tabernacle or you're from Low Street, it really ought not to matter. Every boy and girl in this country must grow up knowing that he or she could aspire to be whatever he or she wants. This old notion that people of Nevis are somehow less than, second class, and therefore cannot aspire to be whatever they want to be, those days are over. And for those who linger with that nasty attitude, tell them I say that that is over. Nothing is wrong with ambition or aspiration. I couldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for ambition. None of us in this room could be where we are if we didn't have ambition to better ourselves. Timothy Harris is our Prime Minister. God bless him. May he have a long tenure in office and good health. But he could not have been Prime Minister if he was not ambitious. And if he did not have the ambition to be Prime Minister. I have never heard anybody attack Tim Harris for wanting to be Prime Minister. I have never heard anybody attack a boy from Bastia who grew up in difficult circumstances and became our first Prime Minister and national hero, Dr. Simmons, for wanting to be Prime Minister. Nobody has ever attacked Dr. Douglas. He had 20 years and he came back looking for more. And nobody said that he was somehow disqualified from being Prime Minister. So why is it such a furor if Joe Public says a Nivision could be Prime Minister? It comes from a deep-seated view by some that the people of Nevis ought not to be allowed to aspire beyond a certain level. And I condemn that unreservedly. I think it is particularly difficult when some who are launching these attacks are Nivision themselves. That is particularly galling, because that tells me that they have no regard for their history, no regard for their island, no regard for the people of Nevis. And that is as much as I will say on that, but I do not want people to feel that the people of Nevis ought not to be allowed to aspire. And I hope that this time in our history, and this time that I am here, for whatever short time I'm allowed, that I will send that message clearly so that every boy and girl in Nevis listening to me today could have whatever aspiration they want. If they want to be Governor General, it's there for them. Prime Minister is there for them. Judge is there for them. Diplomat, ambassador, everything must be there for them, just as those things have been there for the people of St. Kitts. That is all that I'm saying in relation to that particular matter. As to this individual and the attacks, they will continue to talk to themselves, because I have as my personal motto and mantra, ignore the noise. It has worked very well for me. Yes.
Good morning. Monique Washington, St. Kitts Nevis, Observer newspaper. Mr. Premier, during the COVID pandemic, the NIA would have taken a loss, I would say, in revenue when it comes to the reduction of the residency and work permits and the relaxing taxes and things like that. My question is, with all this money not being collected, how does the Nevis Treasury stand, and will it continue to be able to pay its employees going forward? On the onset of COVID-19, persons who were impacted would have been able to have a reduction in electricity and water and so on and so forth. Now, all of this comes to an end basically in 3 days, in 3 business days, let me say that. Is there any plans to further help citizens that have been impacted by COVID-19? Now, I understand the decision to reopen the borders is a federal decision, but what I want to know is what is your stand in the reopening of the borders as it relates directly to Nevis? Can we have an update on BNL Enterprises? And as the Federal Minister of Aviation, what are your plans as it relates to the Vance Armory International Airport? And can we also have updates on the police station, the hospital, the second phase of the Overley Pier, the Charlestown Pier, the Mondo Track, and can you tell us if all these projects are still on budget? Thank you.
Well, you need a press conference for yourself, based on all that you've asked here. I expect that the whole newspaper next weekend is going to be about this, because this weekend, of all you've asked. Let me talk about the projects. I think that in a previous press conference, or perhaps it would have been in a statement, because I've made a few, we did indicate that we've put most capital projects on hold because we simply do not have the resources to execute the capital projects that we had budgeted for. Remember the budgeting process. We say what we intend to do, but those intentions are largely based on revenue and the necessary income to be able to achieve those projects. So you are correct that our income has dwindled to virtually nothing. And so our ability to execute some of these projects has really been impacted adversely. And so projects that are already in train, like the Newcastle Police Station, we will seek to complete. I believe that Minister Jeffers, who's charged with that project, we should be in a position to announce an opening fairly soon on that project. Other projects which are waiting for another phase, like the Mondo Track and the Pier at Wally, etc., those we have put on hold because we must be able to find the resources in order to complete those particular projects. It is just the way it is. I believe that this year would have had a very good year were it not for COVID, but there were other plans. This is the nature sometimes of small economies such as ours. We are buffeted by forces from outside that we have no control over. So COVID came, and therefore COVID would have prevented us from proceeding. BNL Enterprises had proposed a very ambitious project to create what is called a transportation hub here on Nevis. That was the project that was being discussed. Post-COVID, well, I shouldn't say post-COVID because we're still in the COVID period. During this period, we have written to BNL to say that we would not wish to continue with that project of that scale. And what we are now proposing to do at the Vance Armory International Airport is a much reduced scale of project. We've asked them if they're so minded to participate in that, where we would want to do some work there to make the airport more viable for private jet traffic and for regional traffic in particular, rather than what was anticipated, which was to create an international hub to bring flights, long-haul flights from Europe, etc. We thought that given the circumstances now and the uncertainty associated with travel going forward, that would no longer be a wise course. And so we are in discussions with them to scale back what it is they had proposed and to bring other partners into play as well to assist us with a smaller version of what we had initially anticipated. So that's where we are with BNL. We have written to them to indicate that to them. Vance Armory International Airport, I've kind of answered that because I've said that what we now intend to do is to have a private jet facility and, of course, a better facility to accommodate the regional traffic, Liats and the Seaborns, etc., and what they call the regional jets, which can take, say, 100 people or so from, say, a port like Miami. So we are looking at that. We are seeing the hotel sector, the potential for hotels chartering, particularly the big hotels like Four Seasons, that groups could charter. And so we are saying that if we can get that done, then it can charter directly to Vance Armory as opposed to having to land on our sister island of St. Kitts. So we're looking at those possibilities to do that project. And as I said, we have so far been able to get some others on board to buy into that particular vision. And so we hope to be able to have plans that we can unveil very shortly. Federal decision as to opening of the airport, you're right that we have deferred to the federal government in relation to these matters and are working closely with our colleagues over there. My own view is, as I expressed in my opening statement, that we have to reopen. I believe that it is inevitable. We cannot remain closed off from the rest of the world forever. And so while the safety and security of our people has to be our number one priority, we cannot ignore the fact that we have hotel plant, we have investors, we have people who are out of work. And we cannot continue indefinitely with thousands of people not working. We're not just talking about Four Seasons, we're talking about Marriott, we're talking about Park Hyatt, Montpelier, Nisbet. And when you start to add up the people, not only directly in the hotels, but those in the restaurants, those in the tour operators, the taxi drivers, you're talking about thousands and thousands of people impacted. How is the taxi man going to pay for his bus? How is the tour operator going to pay for the scooters that he has just invested in for tourists? How are the restaurateurs going to pay? How are they going to pay the rent? All these people at Port Zante, for example, who have jewelry stores and pay high rents, how are they going to afford if we continue to keep the country closed indefinitely? So I am saying that we have now examples around our region, and we must look to those examples, take from them the best safeguards that we can. But I believe that we must also be straight and practical with our people, that being COVID-free, as we are now, is a status that we would like to maintain, but it is perhaps impractical to think that you will forever be COVID-free. The nature of COVID being as it is, I think we have to prepare ourselves for the possibility in the future that we may have cases again. Our people are coming home. The wisdom now is that we can't stop our people from coming home if they want to come home. We have people who are stuck in hot spots right now, Florida and New York. Went there on vacation, got stuck, they want to come back. They may bring COVID with them, we don't know. But they are our people, and they're entitled to come. So you have all of these considerations, and I think that what we must do is strike the balance. But as I've said, my own view is that that balance must be struck in a way that emphasizes the safety and security. So the protocols must be developed, the hotels, the airports, the arrivals program, etc., to ensure that our people remain safe. The Nevis Treasury, you asked a very good question. I get nightmares every night. How do we pay our public servants? How do we continue to ensure that we keep the lights on? It's a difficult question. Thus far, we have been surviving principally on whatever meager resources we had saved, and of course the assistance of our bankers, who have allowed us some flexibility as we try to move forward. We are, of course, continuing to say to the federal government that the island of Nevis and the NIA should be getting its fair share of the CBI proceeds to assist as well. But that is where we are in terms of trying to hold the line. I have been very firm to my cabinet that we do not want to contemplate any layoffs or any retrenchment. We think that people are already suffering, and we don't want to add to that suffering. But we have to find a way to get the economy reopened, find a way. Because while I talk about the thousands of workers who have been displaced, remember when the hotels are closed, the government revenue is also displaced. We're not earning anything at the port because no food is coming in, no wine is coming in, no rum and liquor and brandy and all of that we are accustomed to get duties on. That's not coming in. People are apprehensive, so people are not buying cars and things like they would in a normal course, because if you don't have a job, you're not sure what's happening. You do what people do. You hold on to what you have. So all around, it tells us that we cannot continue in this state indefinitely, and we have to reopen the economy and reopen the country at some point. And that is what we are looking at this point. You asked about further help. The initial help that we announced was for 3 months. We are hopeful to have another look at that, but our agencies such as NEVLEC and others, Water Department, are also at a breaking point now because they can't continue indefinitely. And those shortfalls have to be made up somehow. And invariably what they've done is come to the central government and say to us in the NIA, listen, we have lost X millions from these incentives that have been handed out. How is that now replaced? And so we are having a very tough time, I admit, to try and meet all those obligations. Our priority as a government was to ensure that our people were as comfortable as possible given the difficult circumstances. We will continue to do that, but what we are likely to do is to streamline to ensure that only the most vulnerable, I keep emphasizing that, because some people are of a view that once something is available, that everybody should get it. And I'm saying only the most vulnerable, the people who are already below the poverty line or are there or thereabouts, and who are likely to be the ones to suffer most. Those are the ones. So when we give out a device to a family, those are the ones we're trying to target. When we give them free internet, those are the ones we're trying to target. Not people who could afford. Because a lot of people who can afford and nevertheless come into government and saying we want this because we hear it's free. And we're saying to them that is not what we intend to do. So we are likely to see a streamlining so that the most vulnerable continue to receive assistance, but those who can do better are allowed the opportunity to do so. So I hope I've answered your questions as best as I could, and I invite other questions if there are any.
Pleasant good morning to all. I
morning.
am Bjorn Hanley, and today I'm here representing BHC Media. I would like to start by thanking the many persons who participated in the electoral process in the past election, and a special thank you to the good people of Gingerland, many of who would have voted for me in this past election. So I say a special thank you to the good people of Gingerland for welcoming me into their homes and for voting for me. Mr. Premier, I took note that during the election campaign, the CCM party, you didn't present a manifesto to the good people of Nevis, and you didn't present any plans and programs that you will do if elected into office. Now that you are elected into office and you have all three elected members of Parliament, can you give us a brief description of what you plan to do in St. Kitts for the next 5 years? And also, you mentioned earlier that the CCM party during the election, through a government program, you gave out food packages, you gave out tens of thousands of dollars worth of vouchers, food vouchers. At a time like this in COVID-19 where persons were vulnerable and it was election time, don't you think that, my question is, don't you think that's a form of bribery? And if you could answer those two questions, and then I would see how I would get back to you on that.
Okay, Mr. Hanley, thank you and welcome back. You did say you were here as BHC Media. I don't know that BHC Media was in an election in Gingerland, because you said you're here in that capacity and you proceeded to thank people for voting for you. But nevertheless, you've used this occasion to thank people, and I want to commend you for your courage in contesting the seat in Gingerland. I have said publicly that there are others in your team who are most vocal on many matters. But when the call went out, only you answered the call. And so I give you an A for courage. If nevertheless you got a failing grade for other things, you certainly get an A for courage. I think that you ought to be commended on that, and I say that unreservedly. You asked what are our plans. You say we didn't put out a manifesto. I will remind you that the CCM was a part of Team Unity, and Team Unity did put out a manifesto. And that manifesto would have set out what our joint plans and programs would have been for the last 5 years. That manifesto was put out, I believe, in online format and was made available. In fact, there was a launch in St. Kitts for that manifesto. And so that would set out what we had proposed nationally for the next 5 years. Insofar as my own ministry and what I intend to do, we are working very hard to expand and continue the work that we've been doing in terms of the diplomacy and the diplomatic footprint of our country. You will see a continued push for new diplomatic relations with various countries, particularly on the African continent. You will see a push for more visa waivers as we take the St. Kitts Nevis passport to the #1 passport in the Americas. That is our goal. Currently, we are second only to Barbados, and we hope to overtake them in short order. We are going to continue to press in terms of opening of offices in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates, offices in Geneva, Switzerland, offices in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Continuing to work with the regional office that we've established in Morocco, where we have a national who is the ambassador there, in Mr. Ian Quealy. And we will, of course, continue to boost our diplomatic efforts regionally and internationally. So those are the plans in relation to aviation. We continue to provide training and development for our workers. We continue to provide access to our expertise to neighboring countries. One of the things I'm very proud about is in the last term, we actually had our aviation officials being invited to places like Dominica to provide training to them. And I believe that that is a clear indication of how well we are viewed in that regard. We will, of course, now have to embark on the task of getting our ranking back. You recall that the FAA has downgraded the ECCA. I want to make it very clear, as I said publicly before, that that had nothing to do with any shortcomings in St. Kitts and Nevis. But the ECCA being a regional authority, there were shortcomings identified, and so we were downgraded, and we would have to work heavily to get that back. You mentioned about bribery and grocery program. I do not take kindly to that suggestion. First of all, let me make it clear that the grocery program is not a government program. Not a penny has come out of the treasury of the Nevis Island administration. This was a program that was designed by the Concerned Citizens Movement, and we put our hands in our pockets for the first $13,500 and invited members of the public to contribute. Through those contributions, we were able to assist, as I said, I believe 162 families in the first round, somewhere 300 or more families in the second round, and we'll see how many we can assist in the third round. We pledged that for 3 months as part of the COVID-19 response. That was something that we did as a party. And I do not take kindly to the suggestion that it was bribery, because we never picked out. We never had a look at the voters list to determine who was getting. We, in fact, sent out a call, and people responded to say, I have a neighbor, I have a friend, somebody's elderly, somebody's sick, who needs assistance, and that is what we responded to. I would also remind you, Mr. Handley, that I saw many green bags going around filled with food being delivered by the Nevis Reformation Party. I never accused them of trying to bribe anybody, because my thinking on it was, is, and will continue to be that all of us were trying to help in a difficult situation where we know that people were having a hard time. And so you were handing out food in some green bags, and we were handing out vouchers to try and assist people. If one is bribery, I suppose all is bribery. And if none is bribery, then none is bribery. I would go further to say that we offered, as government now, a slew of concessions: free water, reduced electricity, free seeds, seedlings, free fertilizer, free labor. And the list went on and on and on. Was that bribery? Or was that an effort on the part of a caring government to provide some relief to people who are suffering? That has to be our role and our focus. In difficult times, we respond to that difficulty in the best way we can. And the government has responded, and separately to that, the members of the government have put their hands in their pockets and responded as well. And the grocery program was designed to ensure that no family goes hungry. We pledged for 3 months, and next month, God willing, July, will be the third month of that particular program. So I don't want this suggestion or that program to be tainted in any way, because I think just as the NRP was out with their green bags delivering food, the CCM was out trying to assist people as well.
Mr. Premier, you mentioned in regards to your plans, you mentioned that Team Unity published a manifesto during the election campaign. But I took note that Team Unity manifesto is a number of plans and programs that they will do in St. Kitts. You have some federal programs. But you mentioned that you will go to St. Kitts to negotiate for the good people of Nevis. But if you don't have an individual plan for the island of Nevis taken to St. Kitts, how exactly will you negotiate? What exactly will you say? Federal programs are meant for St. Kitts and Nevis. That is not something to negotiate for. Team Unity have some federal programs, and they have individual programs. that they're going to do roads, buildings, stuff like that. But you, on the other hand, the CCM party does not have a plan for Nevis that you will take to the Team Unity administration to negotiate. So my question is, what exactly will you negotiate for if you do not have a plan for the island of Nevis? In regards to bags, you confirmed that you did deliver bags and thousands of dollars worth of food vouchers for the CCM party. You said did that. And you mentioned green bags were given out as well. I cannot speak to that because I didn't have any green bags to give out in Gingerland, so I cannot speak to anything. All I delivered to the good people of Gingerland was my plans and programs. Went to see them door to door, and I delivered my plans and programs. I didn't deliver $1. I didn't have $1 to give. I didn't give anybody any money. I didn't give out any green bags. I didn't give out any food vouchers. All I delivered was plans and programs. So that is why I'm here today, to thank the good people of Gingerland for their strong support, considering the circumstances. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hanley, thank you again. I'm not surprised you didn't have anything to give out because we understood you were left out in large measure of the NRP plans. So it's not your fault. That's why I've given you kudos for your courage, because I know that you were cut adrift. You had no support. And so if you didn't have any green bags, I'm sorry. But it is clear to me that the colleagues that you associated yourself with had no interest in assisting you in any way, shape, or form in Gingerland. You said you went with your plans and your programs, and that may be the case. I don't know what they are. But again, the people of Gingerland spoke eloquently. And clearly your plans and programs were not sufficient to persuade them. And at the end of the day, the Honorable Erica Evelyn won every box in Gingerland. So, the voice of the people is the voice of God. You have thanked them, I think, as you ought to do, and I thank them as well for their participation in the process. You talk about the NIA, the Nevis having a plan. I think that the question betrays a thread that I have seen throughout this federal campaign, and that is a misunderstanding of what a federal election is about. People must remember that there is a Nevis Island administration, which went to the polls. We went to the polls to determine that administration in December of 2017. And there were manifestos, competing ideas set out for the island of Nevis and exclusively for the island of Nevis. That manifesto is what continues to guide my government. As Premier of Nevis, that is what guides us. So if you want to know what our plans and programs are, look to the manifesto of 2017. We have had, of course, setbacks. Some areas have not been able to be delivered because we've had exogenous shocks like COVID that we couldn't control. But to ask us what plan for Nevis you took to sink us in a federal election doesn't quite grasp what a federal election is about. Federal election by its nature is national. Because of how the Constitution is structured, in a federal election, yes, you will hear they're going to build a school in Bastille because there is no local government in St. Kitts. And so anybody contesting an election in St. Kitts will say, this is what we plan to do on the island of St. Kitts. That is not the federal role for Nevis. The NIA in Nevis is charged with that. If a school is going to be built in Nevis, that is a role for the NIA. That we will compete with when an NIA election comes. And I hope that you'll be back, because I know your party can't find candidates, so they will have to bring back those that have already been rejected. And that is fine. Try and try again until you succeed. That is the motto. But we have to appreciate, Mr. Hanley, the difference between the two. When I speak about a federal election, I'm speaking about federal programs and the negotiation that Nevis has to do. And the three representatives now for the people of Nevis, what we have to do is to ensure that those federal programs benefit the people of Nevis. If there's a roofing program, for example, it should benefit all the people of the country. Not 60 million spent in St. Kitts and 3 million spent in Nevis. If there is scholarship opportunities, then students in Nevis must have an equal chance to get the chance to go and get a tertiary education, just like their counterpart in St. Kitts. If there are citizenship by investment funds and revenue flowing into the country, the people of Nevis must get their share. That's where the negotiation becomes necessary. What we do with our share would then be to seek to implement the matters that fall to the NIA, better health care, better electricity, better roads. I heard in this election people say they're doing a housing development in Bath. How are they going to do it? They don't understand the difference between the NIA and the federal. No federal government has ever built a house in Nevis. That's a responsibility of the NIA. If I win, I heard some say I'm going to build a road. How are you going to build a road in Nevis? There's no federal minister responsible for roads in Nevis. And I frankly was surprised as I saw the campaign unfold that I heard all these plans, which properly are plans in an NIA election, being articulated in a federal election. How are you going to build a road in Nevis when after the 5th of June, Mark Brantley is still premier and the NIA is still intact for another 2.5 years? Well, where are you going to build the road? How are you going to build the road as a federal minister? You can say that you will negotiate to get some money and pass it to the Premier of Nevis to build the road. But how are you going to build the road? How are you going to do housing development? And I think that's why the NRP suffered such a defeat. They were confused in terms of their messaging. And the electorate out there don't ever underestimate the intellectual capacity of the people of Nevis. They heard it, they understood it, and they knew it was nonsense, and they rejected it. We have to appreciate that there's a distinction between an NIA election and the things for which the Nevis Island administration is responsible and a federal election and what we're looking at. So when we spoke about negotiating a fair share for Nevis, foreign affairs, federal programs that will benefit all the people of the country. If Sean Richards in Sinky says he's going to build a school in Sandy Point, that's understandable because he has no local government over there. And so he must set out what his plans are in Sandy Point. So I just want that difference. It may be nuanced, but I think it has to be understood. So there's no confusion in your mind, Mr. Hanley, none in the NRP's mind, and that the people of Nevis would have a legitimate debate in terms of what is federal and what is local. What are federal responsibilities and what are local responsibilities? Because some of the programs that I heard being bandied about were naturally could not be executed by anybody from the NRP at the federal government level. Simply couldn't happen. So I think that we need to be more realistic and honest with our people when we go out to campaign. All right? Any other questions for me? Sure.
Given the fact that COVID-19 has shown how vulnerable the tourism sector is there a dialogue going on in terms of trying to have a multi-pillared economy? If it's not going on, should it be going on?
Mr. Richards, you have asked an excellent question because I believe that COVID has demonstrated that the goose that has been laying the golden egg, not only for St. Nevis but for our region for a long time, that is tourism, is fickle. And this has brought it to its knees. Attendant on that is, of course, as I've identified, the thousands of people that have been displaced. Taxi men who offer their bus, restaurateurs who have to pay rent, hotel workers, servers in restaurants, chefs, all these people have been impacted negatively. So I believe that the conversation has now to happen. I will tell you on the island of Nevis, I can speak only for Nevis at this point, that we have been having our own internal discussions. We have identified agriculture, and so the thrust that I identified earlier in food security is not by chance. It is us saying that this is one way to respond. We will shortly be outlining some new initiatives for construction so that our people would have some incentives to start construction in the foreseeable future. Those will be time-bound so that people are urged to move some of their resources from the banks or to go and talk to the banks about doing construction. We feel that the construction sector is another sector that now has to be stimulated in order to generate activity. So I've identified agriculture, I've identified construction. we have to look at our financial services sector. Nevis has in recent years, I think in the last year, licensed a new offshore bank, International Bank, which appears to be doing well in terms of hiring. We have sanctioned another bank, the Bank of Nevis International, has new investors and new owners. And I am aware that we have other applications and other individuals wanting to get involved in that sector. In citizenship by investment, that is not something that is impacted negatively by COVID. That is another area that I think that we need to do more in terms of filling the gap, so to speak. So I've identified citizenship by investment, financial services, construction, agriculture as potential areas that we are looking at even now. The last sector that I would mention is the small business sector. Prior to COVID and the lockdown, we had secured $5 million EC, which we were making available to women and to youth, persons under the age of 35, women of any age, and men under 35, to seek to make up to 100,000 EC dollars available to them for what we call seed money to start small businesses. And I'm told that the uptake has been quite good. I hope in a future conference to be able to give some actual numbers. But we are not just giving away the money. The money is being loaned at a low interest rate. And the idea is that we want to create a revolving fund, but something that provides some seed money for those two groups which our research suggested were underserved and were having tremendous difficulty accessing funding from the traditional banking sector. And so we see the small business sector as another area for growth. In this COVID-19 pandemic, we saw youngsters rising to the occasion. We saw, for example, people using technology to do deliveries of groceries and the like, and we think that as this post-COVID period develops, we'll see more technology being developed, more apps being developed, and more young people putting their skill set to work to create niche industries to advance themselves and the country. So I've outlined some broad areas that we are already discussing in terms of what we can do. We are not giving up on tourism because, again, that remains the big fish, if you will, in the pond. But we recognize that that fish is wounded, and we must now do what we can to develop some additional industries around it, if you will, to allow us at least a bit of space if indeed the worst happens and we were to see a further collapse in the tourism industry. I did say the last thing, but you'd asked me and I didn't have a note, but the other thing is renewable energy, because we're going to continue to press on things like geothermal to try and create an alternative industry. And what can develop around that is, of course, manufacturing. If we can provide cheaper, cleaner energy, we hope that we would see some manufacturing developing there as a result. We had other areas. For example, I have said publicly that we in fact had a new operator for our call center in Brownhill, which when that call center closed, it displaced well over 100 people. I think it was 132, if memory serves. And we had secured another operator who was coming in to start. They indicated they would start with 80. They were actually on the airport in Miami en route to St. Kitts Nevis when we asked them to abort because we were closing the borders. And they were not able to come in and spend 14 days in quarantine. And so we have continued that dialogue, but with the borders closed, with the call centers, as you know, being as they are, which have people in close proximity. I think there was a massive outbreak in a call center in Jamaica, for example. These are areas we now have to rethink to determine what the best approach is going to be. COVID has changed everything, and we must now adapt to deal with the new reality and what is being referred to as the new normal.
What about the federal discussion?
So we can capture the question. Yeah.
Yes, you spoke of Nevis, but what about the federal discussion? That is crucial, I think.
The federal discussion is, in fact, crucial. I agree with you. That discussion I have not been privy to in terms of any discussion yet. I believe that since about March we were in the throes of this COVID pandemic, and then clearly by April, May. We went into the throes of an election. Now that we're emerging from an election, I think that you'll probably be hearing from the Prime Minister in relation to that and those issues in terms of what that discussion is going to look like. And so that is something that I believe we must wait and hear from the Prime Minister as the Federal Minister of Finance. And that's why I opted to share what Nevis was looking at specifically in terms of the way forward. Okay, another question?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And, good afternoon, Premier Brantley. Jarvis Vaughan from Vaughan Radio. We just have 3 questions, sir. But first of all, congratulations to you and your CCM party in securing 3 seats in the Federal Assembly, and by extension, the Team Unity movement. But, sir, with regards to all that has been said, you mentioned, of course, that there are X amount of pounds for tomatoes and sweet potatoes and what's not.
Yes.
But is it enough to say, sir, for the record, of course, that Nevis is well taken care of when it comes to food security? And the second question is, I know that you have expressed just a little while ago that the CBI proceeds, a certain percentage, of course, for the CBI proceeds, part of the manifesto when it comes to the island of Nevis. But in addition to that, sir, what can the people of Nevis expect from the CCM party now that it has increased in the number of seats in the federal parliament? And the final question is, now I know you mentioned that with regards to your portfolios, do you think, sir, that of course you are now 3rd in rank when it comes to the federal government, you are the leader of the CCM party, and of course you are the Premier of Nevis, but do you think that perhaps you should have been given more to your portfolio, so to speak, or are you satisfied with what you have been given, sir? And those are my few questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'll start where you left off about being satisfied. I believe that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Aviation is a significant ministry, and it is a ministry that I have sought to do the best I can. I believe that the performance of that ministry has been evident, and that people have at home and abroad commended the performance, and so I feel that it is an area that we ought to continue. It is a ministry where you are allowed to interact with the world, and therefore opportunities such as scholarships and the like that we have been able to develop, I think, is of great benefit. Just last week, two young ladies in St. Kitts advised me that they were going off to Romania to study, and one said that she also had an offer from Azerbaijan. And I was very impressed with that, because it tells me that the messaging and the constant reiteration that we ought to seize opportunities when they arise, that is taking root, and to see 2 of our young women are heading out and taking that challenge for a free education in those countries that are not traditional insofar as we go to for education warm my heart. And I'm hoping that Nevisians who are listening will do likewise, because I continue to encourage them to take advantage. So I feel that that is the position. The ministries, insofar as Nevis was concerned, we had some discussions, of course, and some back and forth with the Prime Minister. My colleagues are satisfied with the ministries that they've been assigned. They feel that they can do good work for the benefit of both islands, the country, in those ministries. And so for me, really, it was a no-brainer to continue in my role. And for the others, they're satisfied. I think Minister Jeffers, Deputy Premier, having control of agriculture in both islands, provides some synergies that he can bring. He has clearly been successful at what he's been doing on Nevis, and to now translate that to St. Kitts as well, I think is of benefit to both islands. You ask, is it enough for the question of food security? My question would be, how does one determine what is enough? Our pledge in Nevis is to seek to ensure that we are better at food security, that we have greater food security on the island. Will we be completely self-sufficient in food? That is unlikely. I don't know how many countries can boast that they're completely self-sufficient. But once we can continue to produce, to feed ourselves, potentially to feed our neighbor in St. Kitts and even surrounding islands as well, and every pound of tomato that we produce means that there is less tomato being imported. We therefore are also achieving what is referred to as import substitution. It means that the island has to find less foreign currency to send to Miami to buy tomatoes. I was very heartened this week, for example, to learn, again from Agriculture and the Deputy Premier, that Nevis is no longer importing beef. That from our livestock at Madden's, the government livestock farm, that we are now producing all the beef that is being consumed on Nevis locally, meaning all the mincemeat, the patties, and all that is produced at our abattoir and our meat processing is being produced here. Prior to this government, we were importing beef from Puerto Rico, importing beef from Statia, and we were bringing meat in. We are no longer importing beef. What that means, therefore, is that we no longer have to find money to send overseas to buy beef. That is now being done locally. These are the things, I think, which are very tremendous strides forward for food security on the island. And every step forward that we make in that regard is a good step. So the more fish we can find, the more beef we can produce, the more pork we can produce, the more chicken we can produce, the more fruits and vegetables we can produce. I believe that it augurs well for our food security. And as we produce and we get excess, we must now look at the quality and the ability to export. And so these are things, and I feel that there's a renewed energy in agriculture because of our response to COVID and our oft-stated goal that we must never again be dependent on tropical shipping coming into our port for our people to eat. And so to move the production, for example, of sweet potato from 640 pounds to 4,600 pounds, it tells you that we are making progress. We're not there yet, but we're making progress and we're moving in the right direction. What can Nevis expect from the CCM government? I think you can expect more good government. More good governance, more of the style of governance we have brought, which is putting our people first, more effort in trying to take care of our people, more effort in trying to attract investment, both local and foreign. We have done an excellent job, in my view, in leveling the playing field for investors. I believe it is next week that we have a significant investment that is opening, what they call it on the Mutty Bottom, they call it, in the area. St. James, it's in St. James, as you near the drag strip, I believe. There's a Wally Funeral Home that is local investors have come forward. People from St. Kitts have invested significantly there. They have other investment plans, and that is what we are saying. And I have said from this rostrum time and time again, investment must not only be people coming in from someplace in a straw hat and flip-flops. We must also encourage our own people to invest. And I believe that message is resonating and that our own people are stepping up to the plate as well. And that is how we grow the economy. And so the people of Nevis have said very clearly that they prefer the concerned citizens movement. And we have earned their trust, and we will continue to work in a way to demonstrate that we are worthy of that trust. And that is what I think people can expect from us. More good governance, more effort at making the lives of our people better, more opportunities for our young people, more scholarships, more training, and an expansion of our local economy. Better health care as we continue to invest, and, of course, better everything, roads, infrastructure, water. And I think the evidence is there for all who have eyes to see, and even those who pretend to be blind. The evidence is there that we are moving in the right direction despite the challenges and despite the difficulties. And that is, there's no greater test than going to the people in an electorate. People say with good reason that it is wrong for Nevis to have these frequent elections. But you know the good thing about these elections? You always have a referendum on the performance of the government in Nevis. Because every 2.5 years, it is tested. And we were tested on the 5th of June, and people gave us a bigger majority in terms of the popular vote than they did on the 18th of December 2017. So it tells me that the people are satisfied, despite the naysayers. And there's nothing wrong with that. In a democracy, we expect that people will talk. But despite the naysayers, it tells me that the people of Nevis are saying that they are satisfied thus far with what they're getting. Because if after 2.5 years, they've given us an even bigger mandate, created history. I mean, who would have thought that the CCM could ever get 420 votes in St. Thomas's? Think about it. In all my years as a candidate, and I have won consistently federal elections since 2007. I won 2007 by 30 votes. I won in 2010 by 148. I won in 2015 by 340. I won in 2020 by 534. I hope you get what I'm going. The margins are getting bigger and bigger. But in every time I've contested a federal election, I have never won St. Paul's until this time. We won St. Paul's by 75 votes, which is unprecedented. So it sends a message that in every constituency there was a swing in favor of the concerned citizens movement, which as the local government tells us that the people have confidence in what we are seeking to do. And that, I like to think, is a good midway point to test the popularity of the government. And I believe the people responded overwhelmingly. Mr. Hanley?
Mr. Brantley, you mentioned that you don't know exactly what were my plans for Gingerland. I had a clear plan. My plans were, I had a clear plans to create jobs in the constituency. We had a plan for Old Manor, to redevelop Old Manor into a skills training center and business center by purchasing it. And we had a plan for Zetlands as well, and also the public market there to turn it into a nice farmers market. We had a comprehensive agricultural plan.
Was your plan articulated to the people of Gingerland, Mr. Hanley?
In the time that was given, yes.
And what did they say about your plan?
From visiting homes in Gingerland, they were very impressed with my plans.
And after visiting the homes, the homeowners went out to vote. What did they say?
Well, those who I spoke to, many of them went out to vote, and it is clear that they would have voted for me. I had a plan for the library as well, which is closed, to turn it into a state-of-the-art modern library with Wi-Fi internet. And all of those would have created jobs. I had a plan for the health center, which is closed as well, to create a nice modern medical center with an ambulance pharmacy, create some jobs there as well. My plan was a jobs plan, and I took note that you said we have the Ministry of Agriculture now in both islands. So perhaps we can get my agricultural plan that I had for Gingerland to increase fishing, to turn Indian Castle into livestock farming, to turn the whole of Gingerland into fruits, plant fruit trees, increase farming there, hire persons. They would be able to take their crops to the Gingerland public market, which will be redeveloped into a nice farmer's market. We can have fresh meat there coming from Indian Castle, fresh fish. We can get that done. I took note that you didn't mention the representative, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, for constituency number 10, his portfolio, which is environment. He's now Minister of Environment. I am told that that is like a quarter. That is just a quarter of a ministry that was there. So they took a quarter of a ministry that was there and give it to our representative in Gingerland, the Minister of Environment. I think that both environment and agriculture could work together, though, and get my agricultural plan implemented in Gingerland so that we will be able to create jobs, 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 and more jobs. That was my campaign, a simple campaign to create innovative jobs. So I'm asking you, please, to look at my plans and programs and see what we can do to enhance the lives of our people.
Okay. Mr. Hanley, thank you very much. A beautiful
you,
campaign speech, but the election was on the 5th of June. And your plans, jobs, 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 and programs, that's why I asked if the people heard you. Because I would imagine the speech you've just made, you would have made leading up to that election. And alas, the people did not agree with you. So, too much noise, well, I don't know. You should have made your voice louder, because the people would have heard your plans. And as I said, that is the beauty of elections. It's an opportunity, it's a contest. And having heard your plans of jobs, 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 and more jobs, I think you said you plant both vegetable and fruit trees, if I recall correctly. The people rejected you overwhelmingly. So I think you just need to accept that, go back to the drawing board. Maybe your plans were good in your mind, but not persuasive to the people. So I don't know if making the same speech here today is going to make any difference, because you had the opportunity before the election and the people would have rejected that speech and rejected the plans that you're talking about. Insofar as the ministries working together, I agree with you. I think that the ministries that are held by the Honorable Eric Evelyn, cooperatives and the environment, are ministries that work well with agriculture, work well with foreign affairs. And that is why, as I said to the question that was asked, that the ministers from Nevis were found the ministries allocated to them acceptable in the circumstances. And we feel that we will work with what we have, and ultimately our goal is to benefit the people of our country. That is why we think that the people voted for us. If there are no more questions, all right. Thank you very much, members of the media. Thank you for coming. Mr. Richards, your first foray into this press conference. I trust to see you back and some more from WinFM. Thank you, Mr. Hanley. You're always here. Thank you, Monique Washington of The Observer. And, of course, Von Radio, which is always here and covering. And I think in the back, resplendent in blue, is THG. So I want to thank you for being here as well. And NTV, thank you as well. Normally we have more people, but as I said, in the context of the COVID-19, we wanted to space the room as effectively as possible. Thank you all very much. We will announce the date of the next meeting for this press conference, and I'm delighted that I was able to resume after a hiatus, and we hope now to move forward. Thank you for being a part of this. You're taking a photo as I'm putting on my face.
Well, you could leave it on.
I'll leave it on. That's good. So I go to it. Let me fix my pocket square and everything. So I see my tie is straight. My tie is straight. This way. This way. I need makeup. I need makeup. All right. Thank you. By Wakely, we need a special forum for Beyond, you know. We should have a forum called political speeches. Huh? You should have an office?